Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I'm going to start with some user feedback. We got some great comments on our YouTube page and also through Twitter that were saying, hey, let's see that Vegetative Health Index map more often. It's a satellite-derived product, and what you can see here is on the left, I have the current year through August 5th, and on the right, in the upper right, I have a year ago. And in the bottom, I have the difference between the two. Now, you can pause the video and take a close look at your specific region here, and certainly there are some big changes, especially out west versus part of the Corn Belt. Also, I see major differences in the southeast as well as in Texas. I want to focus in on one area though, and that is going to be this region right in through here. A year ago, we were dealing with this drought that had migrated out of the Four Corner states through Texas over toward parts of eastern Kansas and into parts of Missouri, just decimating the crop in that area. In fact, here's an easier way to look at it. What you're looking at here is the latest drought monitor. This is the one that just came out Thursday of last week, showing where we're currently dealing with drought. We still have some patchy drought down in the southeast. We can see we've seen this drier time period emerge here in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas as this big upper level ridge took over parts of the desert southwest. We've seen drought that has emerged in parts of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio as well. But take a look at this, coming back to that idea here about Kansas and parts of Missouri. This is what things look like a year ago. So remember how we were having so much drought problem in here while all the storms seemed to ride around the northern periphery of this. And it's important to see that because this year we have a different setup. Take a look at this. This is a flash drought index. This kind of really helps us understand where the most recent drought has set up. In fact, they call this the quick drought response index. And we've been watching this particular region here, which has gotten very dry in the last month, while we've had a lot of very wet conditions in the northern plains here in the lower Mississippi River Valley. We've also seen our quick drought response index increase rapidly over parts of Texas and Oklahoma and parts of Kansas, western Kansas, as of recently. Maybe another way to look at this is just take a look at the last 30 days in terms of the percent of normal precipitation. Very active thunderstorms from New Mexico into Colorado and into parts of Nebraska. Very wet here in parts of South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, and those storms that have raced through parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and of course some of this is from Hurricane Barry. But there are regions that have been very dry, pockets of very dry conditions here east of the Rocky Mountains. Now what I want to do is I want to show you this same map, but I'm going to now remove everything that is below 6 inches. So now you can see who's been incredibly wet versus who's been incredibly dry. So this is right here just showing you locations that have had over 6 inches. These are other locations, those that are not white here, that have had less than 3. So this has certainly been a summer of the haves and the have-nots. Now take a look at this. Over the last 24 hours, that played very quickly here, but over the last 24 hours, what we were watching was a series of thunderstorms that were yesterday morning moving through parts of Nebraska and Kansas, where they are again this morning. We saw a weak frontal boundary move through parts of northern Illinois, mainly bringing some rainfall north of I-80 that then spread into eastern Illinois throughout the day. Now, some folks in through here got some locally very heavy rain. Remember, that's a pocket that had been very dry. After that went through in the early morning hours, or I should say midday, we were watching then later in the afternoon some massive storms erupt here in parts of the high plains, getting into New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska. They eventually moved into Kansas, and when these storms came rocking through, some incredibly heavy rain and big hail. Meanwhile, some folks right in through here in central Illinois got some much needed rain. I saw one report near Springfield of over 3.5 inches of rainfall. And getting you all the way through early in the morning here on Monday, this was the next round of storms we're going to be watching progressing through this same area. Now, I want to show you this phenomenal picture here taken by Jim Tang. He sent this to the National Weather Service at Goodland, Kansas. What a beautiful view here of a powerful supercell. That particular storm was the one that you see moving right in through here late in the day yesterday. And we can see here some big hail out of some of these storms coming through parts of Colorado, getting there into Kansas and Nebraska. In fact, just to show you what some of that hail looked like, these storms, as they lit up all along this area, producing some large hail reports. I kind of zoomed in here. You can see that from Colorado into parts of Nebraska, Kansas, Wyoming, getting back up into Montana. A lot of locations here reporting hail much larger than an inch, some locations over 3 inches. So very active Sunday, and that is the setup, okay? In our last 3 days, Vigorous shortwave now has moved into the Pacific Northwest, bringing rain here that is very atypical for this time of year, some very locally heavy rainfall amounts. The broader ridge is still set up, and you can see that over the weekend, very heavy rain through parts of the central and northern plains. And then some of the rain that came through, bringing desperately needed rainfall into this area. Texas missed out on it. Parts of the Eastern Corn Belt missed out on this. And why these scattered hit or miss storms over the southeast? Now, I know we're spending a lot of time here on the weather, most recent weather, but that is key to understanding where we're going. Because right now, we're watching this very vigorous little shortwave here. There's a little piece of it that's still sitting right in through this part of Kansas and Nebraska, with our ridge now firmly placed right here over the south central plains, moving over to the lower Mississippi River Valley. That's going to be bringing in the heat. This trough you see sweeping in through here is going to be a part of a broader trough system that you'll see here in the coming days sets up right in this section of the United States, well, in North America. And that's going to change our weather patterns. Well, you'll see in just a few moments, okay? All right, what are we dealing with in the morning this morning? Well, we've already got excessive heat warnings and a heat advisory out for a huge section of the south central plains moving over to the lower Mississippi River Valley. That heat moves into parts of of Missouri, into the more southern half of Illinois, and this will stretch east with time into the mid-south. We have regions where we're watching flash floods, even a dense fog advisory in parts of Wisconsin, and underneath that deeper trough, look out there in Nevada, frost advisory. So this is a very interesting setup for this time of year. And over the next 48 hours, we have a couple of corridors that we are going to be watching very carefully. First will be this region, especially right in through here as we progress through the day on Monday, getting into Tuesday morning. And then throughout the day on Tuesday, we're going to watch for our severe weather threat to be spreading on off to the north and east. So our very active pattern isn't letting go. Let's take a look at what it looks like from the Storm Prediction Center. Both today, on Monday, and on Tuesday, we're watching two areas of enhanced risk. Big squall line potential moving through parts of eastern Iowa and northern Missouri, but into Illinois and Indiana with time. Meanwhile, storms continue to fire in the northern plains and in the southern plains as well. In the day on Tuesday, as the frontal boundary stretches out, as that storm system moves through this part of Canada, it'll be right in through here that our greatest risk for severe weather exists. But still, watch this particular spot in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and then also watch the high plains again for the risk of stronger to severe storms in the day on Tuesday. So let's get going. 6 a.m. on Monday, high-resolution NAM model. Let's play this one out and watch the evolution of these storms. The storms you saw earlier moving through parts of Nebraska and Kansas, then move into parts of Iowa. Now, meanwhile, this is 11 o'clock in the morning on Monday. We're going to be seeing the remnants of some scattered storms moving through southern Illinois. But it will be the outflow of the thunderstorms you see right here that could initiate in the afternoon, storms across Iowa and southern Wisconsin. Then in the overnight hours, we are going to be watching for, this will be late this evening into the overnight hours, we're going to be watching for the potential for a large damaging line of showers and thunderstorms right in through this area. Now the question will be, how quickly did they proceed through Illinois and Missouri? See that? How quickly did they move in the overnight hours through Illinois and Missouri? What does the damaging wind look like from these storms? And do they slow down enough to give a decent drink to the crop if they're not producing damaging winds? In the early morning hours, this is now progressing into southern Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, with the tail end still stretching back through southern Illinois and Missouri. So this is a very active next 48 hours for this region. Now getting into the day on Tuesday, we're still watching for our scattered showers and storms stretched across this corridor here. And then this is Tuesday afternoon and evening. We're going to watch again for the potential for damaging winds from squall lines setting up all across parts of the mid-Atlantic, stretching back through the mid-South. See this Tennessee, Kentucky? This is coming through you afternoon on Tuesday. Now, the main upper level low is still spinning here. Look, you can see it up in parts of Saskatchewan moving into Manitoba. So northern parts of North Dakota over the next couple days, we could be getting some desperately needed rain for that area as well. Putting that all together, take a look at this. I've got the NAM in the upper left, the GFS in the upper right, and the ECMWF in the bottom center. And we're only looking out to Wednesday morning. We're trying to see some model agreement here. Certainly the models, I'm going to show you this on the European, picking up on the heavier rains in parts of the northern plains moving through Minnesota and Wisconsin with the next two systems. We can then see this stretch right in through here wet as well. You can see that in all three model runs. The question marks will remain through this particular area. How much of that squall line is able to come through and put down some heavier rainfall? And does it kind of leapfrog over parts of Kentucky before it reinvigorates here back into Tennessee and through this area? Those are the near-term questions we're going to have to now cast our way through the next 48 hours to see here. But overall, this is pretty decent multi-model agreement in the next 60 hours. Now, beyond that, we got to go to the upper levels of the atmosphere. Watch this. As we play this out, here's the shortwave through Tuesday we're watching moving through the Great Lakes states. See it there? And that's what sweeps into the northwest. Flow stagnates toward the end of the week by building in this bigger ridge over Alaska with a trough just to the south. That's that high over low pattern. And what that's going to allow to have happen is watch the deeper troughing become established here across the western United States as we move in toward the weekend. Now, what have I stressed every video that you've watched that I talk about the flow of the jet stream? Remember, it's always how we emerge out of a trough into the subsequent downstream ridge, which is here, is putting this particular area into a very active pattern. Now, what time are we talking about here? It's the end of this week. We're talking about this upcoming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that deeper trough that is now emerged in the western half of North America will be a major player for letting heat to build into this section of the country. And I'm watching this area for the potential for some severe weather, more severe weather toward this weekend. Getting you out into, this is the 20th of August, 21st, 22nd. This is pointing toward a warm end of the month for the lower, I'd just say the more southerly 2/3 of the United States. You'll see it in just a few seconds, with cooler air being trapped into this section of Canada. Let's take a look at the precipitation maps. Next 10 days from the European model, next 10 days from the GFS. You can see the north central plains moving over toward Minnesota and Wisconsin, staying very active. We can also see this region right in through here picking up heavier rain in both model runs. European left, again, GFS on the right. And both model runs are keeping this particular area very active with a lot of thunderstorm activity, so some potential flooding down there as you approach the Gulf Coast, getting into the Cotton Belt. And even with that next shortwave that comes in, more rainfall anticipated here in the Pacific Northwest, and this is normally a very, very dry time of year. Okay, so we've got this picture painted by both of our models. I want to show you some analysis I'm doing here with the GFS. This is some new analysis. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the last 4 runs, and we're overlaying those last 4 runs only for regions expecting to get an inch of rain through the next 10 days. And so you can see the main corridors over which that's expected to happen, all right? So the darker the shading of gray, the higher the probability that in the next 10 days we'll be grabbing an inch of rain. What I don't like is that even though storms are coming in the near term, this part of the eastern Corn Belt only has a few of the more recent model runs picking up on that really heavy rain. So we'll keep a very close eye on this as we progress forward and keep looking at this map to see the model trend. Now, to get into some of the details here before we move to kind of a tropical forecast and an international forecast, I want to show you kind of a tandem animation. On the left-hand side, I have CAPE, so you can think of this as a measure of moisture and instability. On the right, I have every 6 hours precipitation. So as we progress forward, this is now Monday night, getting us into Tuesday. This is the time period that we're going to be watching, again, this area for our severe weather right in through here. So we can see that the atmosphere is certainly destabilized in that area, and it's going to be producing the best chances for having those severe thunderstorms Monday night into Tuesday morning. Now, Tuesday morning, we can see them progressing into parts of the eastern Corn Belt, so some locally heavy rain, thankfully, but this will then be producing here the next chance of our severe weather right in through this area on Tuesday afternoon and evening. This is the area we've been watching. Now, after this, watch the CAPE values really drop across parts of the Corn Belt as I progress through the middle of the week. Higher atmospheric pressure, drier conditions move into this area, but things begin to reload right back up into the central plains as that deeper trough begins to build toward the end of the week. Remember, we saw it right here in the western United States. And as it does so, look at this. This is now Friday afternoon, our first chance at some more showers and storms moving through parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, right there. Is there decent support for them being strong to severe storms? Not fully yet, but we're going to have to watch this evolve throughout the week. But take a look at what happens as it gets you into Friday night, Saturday morning here, into Saturday afternoon. Notice broad area of lowering pressure out here in Montana. Deeper wave moving in to the Pacific Northwest. Now you probably have seen over on this side how high the Cape values are showing up here. This is now Saturday night. Very windy in the Central Plains, and I'm going to be watching this area right in through here to potentially pop with a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity. You can even see that stretching right over into here. While the model's not picking up on heavy rain, look at the instability. That will be right along the warm front. So this will be an area on, Saturday. I'm watching for the potential for more showers and thunderstorms. Okay, so this is an end of the week forecast here. Well, that upper level low then moves across the Canadian prairies, bringing some heavy rain into this area. And as it does so, I know you're not seeing it much here, but we're going to watch this area for showers and thunderstorms to be developing again for our weekend. So that's getting you out a week in the precipitation forecast here. So this is a complicated forecast moving forward. What are our temperatures doing? Well, over the next 5 days, remember the southern plains going to stay very, very warm. The southeast staying very, very warm. What do we see in the northern half of the U.S.? Remember, we're kind of split here right along this area. As north of that dashed line, cooler than average, south of it, warm. But as we talked about, the deeper trough moves in here toward the end of the week. And look at the heat and the potential for the instability to move in out ahead of it. So this is this warm end of the month of August we've been discussing and taking you all the way out to the day 10 through 15 time period. So this is going to be looking out here the 23rd through the 27th. We again see this is the area that has the best chance at staying cool, but wet on the west coast. Warm on the west coast and warm progressing all the way here across the central United States toward the northeast. So pretty robust forecast in terms of our temperatures. Very quickly to finish this up, the tropics are remaining quiet. This animation you're seeing here shows no major tropical waves of concern, at least in the next 5 days, that we need to be paying attention to. But as we progress through August, it does appear that we could be getting more active with time. All right, Europe, very quickly here. Major pattern change happening in Europe once we get out to about the day 8, 9, and 10 time frame. In terms of precipitation, no major areas showing up very, very dry over the next 10 days or 15 days, which is what you see on the left. But we've had this very cold pattern in parts of the Russian wheat belt getting over to eastern Ukraine, Turkey, that we've held on to for a while. Look at what happens by the time we get out to the day 10 time frame. So day 5 through 10, much different pattern here, which shows us that parts of Western Europe cooling down and Eastern Europe really warming up here. So we're going to pay close attention to that. Finally, we did bring some very heavy rain into this area with the first typhoon that slid through. It is now showing up in the next 10 days going back over toward dry. And this has been an area, these very productive fields south of Beijing, that have shown some stress early this year. Meanwhile, the remnants of that tropical system are now moving through China's northern growing region. So those are the area north of the Korean Peninsula. We're watching our next typhoon move right over the top of Japan. Also, the Indian monsoon is back in full swing again. You can see some very heavy rainfall across that area. So this is keeping us aware of what's going on over in this part of Asia. And just something fun to kind of finish this out. Remember, we are in winter in Australia, and I saw this video pop up here, and this was a bunch of kangaroos jumping through the snow. So it does snow in Australia, and I thought that'd be an interesting way to finish out this video. All right, with that, we'll stop it right there. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions, thank you for your attention. Hope you look forward to all of our forecast videos coming out this week. Have a great week. Keep a very close eye on that radar. A lot of areas with severe weather coming up, though. All right, talk to you again soon. Thank you.